quote, supportive housing has become very popular up here, but we have the Senate on 92nd Street, the Narragansett on 93rd Street, the St. Louis on 94th Street. We have the Camden on 95th Street. We have the Rose and the Yale on 97th Street. We have two shelters on 95th Street proper, the Continental and the Pennington, and a building called the Mount Royal, which was briefly the Apple Shelter in 2006, which is also controlled by Hess and Lapis. Does that sound like a lot in a small area?
St. Louis.
I started with St. Louis.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Did I start with the St. Louis?
No.
How many people heard me say St. Louis?
No, I said
Take a poll
St.
vote.
I said St. Louis. I said, I know. But you know what? But there's something about the St. Louis you can never forget, no matter how hard you try. And actually, we have two folks who live in the St. Louis and can tell you what it's like. But I mean, the St. Louis has had 2 uninvestigated deaths this year in the building. There were only about 30 or so tenants in the building. They did an 80% demolition in the building to turn, and for $39 million and a couple of dead bodies, they're taking an SRO and converting it into an SRO. With tiny rooms and communal bathrooms and 19th century style housing, but in the 21st century for a $39 million price tag. So that's just one example, and very bad actors, I would say. If you look into their history on the Upper West Side and up in Hudson, New York, they're bad actors. They're really, to me, just as bad as Hess and Lapis, and in fact CBS did 2 investigations, Don Daly, 2008, and it amazes me what they found in these buildings, and nobody did a damn thing about it. Only under Bloomberg. You're right, don't elect billionaires, but how do you have 2 investigations by CBS, and you find that there's holes from one floor to the next, there's rats, there's bed bugs, there's mice running around, the place wasn't painted. We had an inspector in there, our own environmental inspector, who found black toxic mold, asbestos.
A dead body.
A dead body. Well, this man actually lives under a dead body. The body was left so untended that it literally started to drip through to his room. This is true. I'm sorry, guys. How many people ate dinner already? It's too late. If you haven't, I ruined it. And if you have, oh boy, listen, the bathroom's out that way. So seriously, and then in the Camden on a Friday afternoon in July had a murder. The murderer had recently been relocated from the 97th Street Yale facility. And since he couldn't live there, they did the logical thing. They moved him 2 blocks to another facility where he killed a resident manager. A week later, a new relocated person, a newly relocated client at the Narragansett on 93rd Street murdered somebody who was living there. So we've had, and then like a week later, they opened 2 shelters with 400 people, 2 adult family shelters. And the last time they did that, it was at 95th Street. It was the 94th Street building owned by the same cabal. We had all sorts of crime and mayhem. Drug dealers opening up on the corners. I mean, Gail Burr said, "I saw it, Aaron. I saw it, Aaron." We're seeing an increase in drug dealing now on 95th Street. In fact, actually, the same week, across from PS 75. There's condoms in the streets. A man got shot right next to one of the buildings a week after it opened in August. And yes, PS 75, that's a big consideration. We have caught, when they had used it as a temporary shelter, we had caught on 3 occasions serious, multiple repeat pedophiles with records where they had attacked small children. One guy had served 15 years for raping an 8-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old. One was a boy, 2 were girls. I think if he was next to a fruit stand, he would attack a watermelon. But the point is, he's next to a school, and people here could not understand what was the logic of putting a pedophile.